The amount of buildup and excitement around this movie hasn't been seen since No Way Home and Endgame. The amount of fan theories were unbelievable, and people genuinely believed this was gonna save the MCU. Even Marvel jokes about Deadpool being their Jesus and puts all their chips on this one, making it their only 2024 release. We've seen this scenario play out so many times. People expect too much and end up disappointed. And I can genuinely say after watching this movie, the last thing I would call it is a disappointment. It was exactly what I said it would be for months. Pure, unadulterated fun.
Yes, dude!
To sum up the plot, and fair warning, spoilers are coming, we see Deadpool trying to join the Avengers with no luck. His life spirals, he breaks up with Vanessa and becomes a car salesman until the TVA comes knocking. Paradox tells Deadpool that Logan's death triggered the destruction of his universe, and Paradox wants to speed things up using a time ripper which destroys universes. Deadpool decides to try and find a replacement Wolverine and finds what Paradox calls the worst one. They get pruned and end up in the Void, where they fight each other until they get captured and brought to Cassandra Nova, who rules over everyone. They barely escape and end up on a journey to find the rebels, who turn out to be X-23, and strap yourselves in for these: Wesley Snipes Blade, Jennifer Garner's Elektra, and Channing Tatum as Gambit.
No way! No way!
I'll get into the cameos more later on, but the team helps Deadpool and Wolverine get to Cassandra, and after Logan shows her compassion, she helps them get back to Deadpool's universe. She eventually finds out Paradox tried to have her killed, so before they can stop him, she sends the Deadpool Corps after the duo, while she takes over the device. After a huge all-out fight scene, they find a way to distract the variants and head to stop Cassandra. Both Deadpool and Wolverine interfere with the device and save the day, leaving Wolverine and a gift from the TVA in the form of X-23 on Deadpool's Earth. There's a lot to break down here, so right off the bat, I'll say this movie was fun. Take out all the cameos and nostalgia, it was still 2 hours of fun. I can't say that word enough because it's something Marvel's been seriously lacking since Endgame. It wasn't the deepest movie or the most mind-bending, it was just good old-fashioned entertainment. We didn't get preached at about politics or sexuality or gender, we just saw extremely badass action scenes with something else Marvel's been missing: jokes that actually make you laugh. And there's a ton of them in this movie, which I guarantee is due to Ryan Reynolds being so heavily involved with Deadpool's humor.
Thank you, God. This will bring us so much joy.
Of course, the elephant in the room with this movie is its use of cameos and nostalgia. The big question is, did they finally do it right? Or is this another multiverse of madness? They absolutely nailed it, and while you might think they learned from their mistakes, it most likely had more to do with Ryan Reynolds being involved, because he actually cares about Deadpool and doing this movie the right way. We heard rumors about all of these cameos, but a lot of them were rumored to be in Secret Wars, so it was surprising to see them here. I don't like the idea of using nostalgia and cameos to begin with, but if they're going to be included, they should be done right, which this movie manages to do. Going in chronological order of the big cameos, we first get treated to a montage of comic book Wolverine variants, which included Hugh Jackman playing an accurate to the source material short Wolverine, and of course Deadpool had fun mocking him as he did with the others. The biggest variant, and I mean that metaphorically and literally because he got absolutely jacked for this, was Henry Cavill. It was a short but amazing scene, and seeing Deadpool take a steamy shit all over DC for the way they treated him was hilarious. He definitely looked the part too, and seeing him in a small bit of superhero action just felt right. Hats off to Ryan Reynolds for taking advantage of James Gunn's stupidity.
Jesus. This man is a hero.
Then we had Chris Evans, who at first seemed to be playing the Nomad version of Steve Rogers. I have to say, when he was building up to his big line, I thought he was just gonna cuss them out, which would surprise Deadpool, but holy shit, when he said flame on, it shocked the hell out of me. Again, I thought they'd save that for Secret Wars, but they went all out for this movie. He's the one hero you could argue gets disrespected, but honestly I don't think so. Human Torch isn't some hugely popular character, he was a throwback to some decent but ultimately failed Fantastic Four movies, and the difference between this and Wanda's executions all came down to Deadpool and his spot-on sense of humor, joking about what Chris Evans was doing to the budget, not to mention Wolverine berating Deadpool for basically murdering Johnny. After that, we had the Rebels, who were actually handled with respect, unlike Multiverse of Madness. They were allowed to be badass, which is just what the audience wanted to see. I'd bet that Ryan Reynolds is the reason these characters got the respect they deserve, because if Marvel brought him a plan similar to Multiverse of Madness, he probably would have laughed and closed the door in their faces.
Whole bunch of functional idiots.
Gambit was the most surprising to me because out of all the rumors, that seemed the most unlikely. His costume was a goddamn masterpiece. It looked like it was ripped right out of the comics and just proves comic book costumes do not need to be changed. They nailed his fighting style too. Between the cards and the bow staff, he was a machine tearing through everyone. Jennifer Garner did a great job as Elektra. They even worked in some jokes about her and Ben Affleck. She looked great in the role. I've always liked her as an actress, and she did not disappoint here, especially during the action scenes. I have to say that woman has aged like fine wine. Good God, she looks amazing, and that outfit made her look even better. And then of course, we have Wesley Snipes as Blade. The man hasn't played the character in about 20 years, but slides right back in like he never left. His action scenes, my God, what a badass. He obliterated everything in his path. When he launched a rocket, as he said, there's only one blade and there's only gonna be one blade, you felt the exact way Deadpool looked. Just a huge yikes moment I'm surprised they let this movie have, mocking the fact that they can't manage to get their reboot going, so Wesley might actually be right in the end. I mean, hell, Wesley freaking Snipes came back as Blade after 20 years before we've even gotten a look at the MCU's Blade, who they've been working on for over 5 damn years. X-23's presence in the movie was really to help Wolverine's character grow and remember how to be the hero he once was. Daphne Keane was great and her action scenes were just as brutal as Logan. When she sliced off Juggernaut's ankles, my God, that was some real rated R action right there. It was great to see her laughing and happy with Wolverine at the end, and it does leave me wondering what other plans Marvel has for her, considering she was the only one of the rebels we saw get brought back from the void. And wow, I have to say, she gave Jennifer Garner a run for her money because Daphne Keane is pretty damn hot. The Deadpool Corps didn't really play a huge role, which surprised me. I had a feeling Marvel would take Lady Deadpool and run with it, but she barely had a few lines. They didn't overstay their welcome at all, which was a great decision this movie made. I'm also extremely glad they went with Blake Lively instead of Taylor Swift, because that would have been a huge mistake. The whole variant army was basically this movie mocking multiverses, and it was perfectly executed. Just the sheer silliness of the variants and Deadpool talking to them like he was already over it really captured the way fans have felt for years.
I'm done. I'm done.
Lastly, we have our dynamic duo themselves, Deadpool and Wolverine. That opening scene really sets the stage for the kind of movie this is. Deadpool went right after Logan's grave and killed God knows how many TVA agents with Wolverine's bones. Now, I wasn't a huge fan of the whole Deadpool retiring thing, but once we got past that, it was fine. Deadpool's humor was spot on about 99% of the time, and I genuinely cannot believe Feige let them use all of those jokes. There were so many jokes it's hard to remember, but man, he went after the MCU. Whether it was telling Logan he joined at a low point, or explaining to the Deadpool Corps that the multiverse wasn't working and people were sick of it, Deadpool took every opportunity to mock all of the dumb shit we've had to deal with since Endgame. Now granted, they left a lot out, like the tokenized knockoff heroes and girl bosses, so it seems like even Feige has his limits. It's pretty hilarious to think about Kevin Feige sitting down with the team and saying it's okay to talk about cocaine, pegging, all that stuff, but don't talk about our diversity hires now. That could offend somebody.
How does that even make sense?
The 1% of Deadpool's humor that fell flat was when he did his impression of a 55-year-old dad trying to talk to his pissed off teenage daughter by using words he saw on Twitter. Hearing Deadpool say trauma bragging or let him cook genuinely made me feel like walking out of the theater. We all get what you're trying to do, but seeing the TikTok garbage from the real world infiltrate entertainment is a genuine tragedy. Any immature idiot who's above the age of 18 and actually talks like that or thinks that's funny should take a flight to South Korea, stroll right over that DMZ line, and get captured.
You guys make me sick.
Wolverine was the least surprising part of this movie because Hugh Jackman is a professional at playing the character by now. He nailed it yet again, and finally seeing him don the iconic suit felt like they were fixing a mistake that should have never been allowed in the first place. Seeing him put on that Wolverine mask was just an iconic moment for that character, and it's all Fox's fault that Marvel gets all the credit for that. He was also the emotional heart of the movie, because while Deadpool fighting for his family was heartfelt, seeing a version of Wolverine that failed to save all the X-Men and went on a revenge killing spree just felt different after we've spent 24 years with him. He was a broken man who needed a reason to be the Wolverine that Charles and the X-Men always wanted him to be, and Deadpool gave him that opportunity. Now don't get me wrong, that's not to say Wolverine accepted it with open arms. When I say this movie didn't need cameos, it's because their chemistry alone could have carried this thing. Their back and forth was non-stop, and their polar opposite personalities just made the comebacks even better. Deadpool mocks Wolverine's drinking problem, Wolverine tells Deadpool his wig isn't fooling anyone. Deadpool uses Nice Pool as a human shield, and Wolverine calls out his bullshit since we all know he wanted him dead. It was just constant jabs and mockery, and of course Deadpool's fourth wall breaking by mentioning Disney making Hugh Jackman stay on till he's 90, or that Blake Lively wouldn't like Wolverine's mind being in Deadpool's pants. These two are made to play those roles, and it's a shame we had to wait this long to see them on screen together. Their duo action scenes were choreographed so damn well, I honestly could not believe this was a Marvel movie. The action was non-stop, it was violent, it was creative, and it was a goddamn pleasure to experience. We haven't seen fun, inventive action scenes like that in a Marvel movie in such a long time.
I love it when a plan comes together.
There's a few things to take away from this movie that have major implications for the MCU. The first is that this movie pretty much confirms these two are gonna be in Secret Wars. Whether it was the Secret Wars comic book they showed in The Void, the TVA agents saying their work was just getting started, or the future vision of Thor crying over Deadpool's body that Deadpool becomes obsessed with, it's pretty obvious these two are involved in the next big team up. The second takeaway is this: Marvel's not saved yet. People are gonna start yelling some nonsensical stuff like, "See, Marvel knows what they're doing, you should all shut up now," as if they have the memory of a goldfish and somehow forgot about the last 5 years of non-stop box office flops and garbage TV shows nobody watched. As much as Deadpool jokes about it, this movie isn't even trying to save Marvel. It feels like it's doing its own separate thing, paying tribute to all the heroes that paved the way for the MCU, and even some who never got their chance to shine. Is Deadpool and Wolverine the greatest thing to ever hit cinemas? Does this one movie mean Marvel is somehow saved? No, and definitely not, but it was one hell of a fun movie. It's hard to think of the last time a superhero movie came out that was just 2 hours of pure fun. All it did was focus on entertaining the audience, and it did exactly that. I can almost guarantee this movie's success is due to Ryan Reynolds' involvement and his passion for playing Deadpool. None of this would have been possible without him. Hugh Jackman probably wouldn't have returned, and Marvel would have destroyed the character if Ryan Reynolds wasn't there to keep them in check. All the cameos were well executed and handled with respect, which again, considering what they did with Multiverse of Madness, makes it clear that's probably thanks to Ryan Reynolds. The action justified the R rating and then some, and the main duo's chemistry kept you engaged in the story with their constant jokes and witty jabs. Deadpool and Wolverine is the first Marvel movie in years I can honestly say I'm considering rewatching, because in this day and age when something fun like this comes along, you'd better enjoy it while it lasts, because there's no guarantee we'll ever get something like this again.